Welcome to Theater Corner. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. Theater Corner is created as an ongoing effort to increase more diverse interests and involvement in the theater scene. Today, we're shooting today's episode at Riverwalk Golf Course in Mission Valley in San Diego, California. We're here in honor of our next guest, the uber-talented Ian Sinclair Lassiter. So, silence your cell phones, folks, because you're about to enter Theater Corner. You ready to rip it on, brother?
Oh, you know I'm ready to rip it on.
All right, let's do it then.
Let's hit these links, man.
Okay. Ian Sinclair Lassiter.
That's right.
You're very welcome to be here at Theater Corner. How about this? You can't get any better than this.
Not at all. Look at this. I mean, overlooking the 18th hole after playing a nice round with Trevor, man. Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
Good back, man.
And we're in San Diego. So what is it that brings you to San Diego from New York?
Well, I came out here to do Richard II at the Old Globe Theater. And I stayed around to do Hamlet, which I'm playing Horatio in right now. So it's been a summer of Shakespeare in San Diego, so it doesn't get much better than that.
How about that?
Yeah.
Wow, so you've been here a few months. So what has it been like to perform at the Globe?
Oh, it's been just a joy. It's such a beautiful outdoor theater, and the audiences are so warm, and they just really love Shakespeare, and so I get to nerd out a little bit with one of my passions, to do it on that beautiful outdoor stage with amazing people. Worked with Barry Edelstein, who is the artistic director.
Right.
He's directing Hamlet now, and he's been a pleasure to work with. He knows so much about Shakespeare, and we get to geek out a little bit and really get into the text work together on the stage. So, and before that, I worked with Erica Schmidt, who's also a fantastic classical theater director. So it's just I've had an amazing time working with amazing casts and crews and directors out here. Yeah.
All right, yeah. And you've played Hamlet yourself. I mean, this is not a new play to you, but in this particular play, you play Horatio.
I do play Horatio this time. So he's the classic best friend.
All right.
He's Samwise Gamgee to his Frodo Baggins.
There you go.
And Grantham Coleman, who is playing Hamlet now, is just incredible. We've really become really good friends along the way, which is great for the community too, to have strong connections that will grow even after the show is over. So I've been real lucky with that. When I played it, I actually used that monologue to get into grad school. So I played Hamlet at Fordham.
Okay.
At Lincoln Center, which is where I did my undergrad.
Okay.
Had a great time there, really got to dig in to some classic text. But because I had played Hamlet, which we had cut down to an hour and 45 minutes, by the way. So we got up the chalkboard and we said, kill Claudius. That was my directors and my thesis. And anything that didn't fall under that, we chopped it right out. So 145 Hamlet, not bad. And then I had those monologues, so when I auditioned for grad school, I used Rogue and Peasant Slave monologue. Now, at the time, I was a little bit wilder back then, so I was rocking a faux hawk, had the chain around my neck, and I showed up. They said, "That's a lovely Hamlet. Can you come back and maybe do it a little less urban?" I was like, okay. So, I combed it down, I put the jacket on, I did the same monologue again, and they were just looking at me, marveling, like, wow, it's so different. I said, different day, different Hamlet.
There you go.
And that's how I got into grad school. So, yeah.
And you're no newcomer to Shakespeare. I mean, you've done countless Shakespearean performances.
Hopefully I'll get to countless one day, but right now I've got a good number under my belt. The first show I ever did was a Shakespeare show. In high school, I started doing stand-up comedy, and my director found out and approached me one day and said, "Hey, would you like to audition for my show?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, that sounds interesting." And it was for Twelfth Night, and he offered me Toby Belch. And once we got into rehearsals, I just fell in love with it. I just really loved he was a great teacher, and I really loved unlocking the puzzle of the language and making it sound, like contemporary speech at the same time. So I've just had a draw towards unlocking that old style language for contemporary audiences, and find a lot of pleasure in that. Yeah. I think audiences really respond when they hear someone making that old language pop like it's brand new. So that's been a love of mine for a long time. Yeah.
So we were joking earlier.
Yeah.
You've been mistaken for Middle Eastern.
Oh.
You've been mistaken for Indian.
Yeah.
But your actual background is.
Yeah. My mom's side is Puerto Rican. My dad's side's black, and there's some Native American in there.
Okay.
So we were joking before about my name, Ian, right?
Ian.
So I've got Ian Lassiter, but I look like this, and I'm Puerto Rican and black. So my Puerto Rican side says my name like Young, and my black side says they're from North Carolina. They're like Ian. So no, it's one of those funny names. Being of mixed race, and being a little ambiguous ethnically. It's really been lucky for me that something like Shakespeare has been around for me to latch onto, because, I'm not going to do an O'Neill play, right? They're not going to cast me in that. And also, it's not easy for me to get into an August Wilson play, for example, because I'm too light, I got the straight hair.
Right.
And a lot of Latino plays, they'll get someone who's actually from the Bronx. And I grew up in Windsor, Connecticut. So it's like Shakespeare's been this real generous niche for me to get into, being an ambiguous looking person as I am. So when you're doing Shakespeare, they worry about what you look like secondarily.
Okay.
They worry about, can you handle the language first? And I've always been able to handle the language pretty well. So my looks come secondary, and that's been really lucky for me to have a career.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I attended Hamlet and both and Richard II, and you held your own. I mean, you held strong up there. It's really well done.
I appreciate that.
And so the reason we're even doing this interview here on the golf course is because you've been playing golf tournaments since you were 11 years old.
That's true. That is true. Believe it or not.
How did this love of golf or involvement in golf, where did that start?
It starts with my dad, just not too dissimilar from being named Ian. My dad was really instrumental in getting me well-read early, and he wanted me to, he fell in love with golf in the 80s because he was a real estate financier for commercial real estate. Everywhere he went, I went. So that meant if he was on the golf course, he took me. Okay. And I just really fell in love with the, it's a hard sport.
Right.
It takes a lot of mental toughness. So I really equate that with my love for theater too, because there's this term called being in the slot with golf. And that's that golden zone right where you're coming through impact.
Okay.
Where you have to be totally aware, but you also can't control it. So it's like walking that tightrope every time. And I feel that on the stage too. So, when you're not trying to think of the next thing you're going to say, but you're aware of the audience, but they also disappear.
Right.
It's that same feeling of getting into the slot. So I feel like everything I do has been based off of that early love of golf.
Okay.
Just really finding that tightrope walk. So I have my dad to thank for that, setting me down that road.
Is there anything about golf that's kind of informed the technical aspects of what you do on the stage?
Absolutely. Discipline.
Okay.
Discipline and practice. Constant practice. It's easy to think that once you memorize the words, you're ready to get on stage, but that's just scratching the surface. All the work that goes into who you think the person is and what do you think that person does. You got to do all that homework before you show up to play on the first day of rehearsal. And the same thing I took with golf. You don't just practice your swing for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there.
Right.
Every day you're out there uncovering how to get into the zone for hours a day, and it's just on your mind. So I think the same thing's true for theater.
So along with acting, our crack research team here at Theater Corner, we discovered that you've actually written a short film,
yes,
which has been selected at a film festival before.
The Iron Mule Film Festival in New York. at my favorite little movie house in Brooklyn called Nighthawk. You know, you can go. It was the first place I went where you could go and have like dinner and a beer while you're watching a film.
Okay.
You know, they have that in Europe, but
Yeah.
I had written comedy with my comedy troupe for a number of years, and I wanted to try something that was a little bit longer. So I had been reading all these stories about folks who would take a DNA test that thought they were black from down south, and then they get their test results back, and they have 0 sub-Saharan African DNA.
Oh, gee.
Right? So I had read that story a couple of times, so I wondered what it was like for somebody who, you know, identified black, but was light-skinned and only had the affirmation of black by being told they were black by their parents.
Okay.
And then having to deal with that being taken away with them, and then asking questions about, well, what is blackness? It's not just your skin tone. Because, you know, black folks come from all shades,
right,
all,
exactly.
all waves of hair.
Yeah.
There's a culture that goes behind it.
True.
And I find that to be as important, if not more important, than just your skin tone. So it was really unlocking those kind of questions of, you know, what is that culture that makes us black too? What is that history that we share? And it's a comedy, if you can believe that. So yeah.
Speaking of black,
Yep.
we typically we bring up diversity and inclusion here on Theater Corner. Any comments on diversity and inclusion in the theater world from what you've noticed?
I'm loving what I'm seeing in the trend.
Okay.
It's being much more inclusive now, not just in off-Broadway, where you know you can afford to be a little bit more forward-thinking. I think it's fascinating that, you know, being more racially inclusive has to be forward-thinking, even in 2017, almost 2018. But
Right.
every step is a step. But seeing it happen more on Broadway, with things like Hamilton, with Great Comet that just closed, it was extremely racially inclusive, even though it was a rock opera about war and peace. And then seeing that trickle out into the regional theaters more and more, and there being more of a demand to have more racially inclusive cast has been really refreshing and exciting, I think. Like this Hamlet that we're doing right now at the Old Globe, Barry did a damn fine job of bringing out a lot of people of color.
Correct.
To represent the royal family, which is a huge step, and it makes a big statement.
Right.
And we have such a great bunch of people, and Barry was such a good director, that the audiences don't spend any time thinking, oh, why aren't they Danish? Why don't they look Danish?
Right,
We're just
right.
enjoying the story, and we just happen to be mostly people of color. So that's been really special to be a part of.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. When you leave from here, I understand what's up next for you. You're doing writing. You're doing tons of writing.
I am, tons of writing. I actually and filming. So the most immediate and interesting thing I'm working on is my brother is a musician. He writes pop electronica music.
Okay.
And he just wrote this concept album that takes place in a rundown motel called the Chesterfield. So we're a couple months into pre-production for getting a film on that. So when I get back, that'll be the first thing I'm doing, along with returning to Lincoln Center, which is where I had my Broadway debut. With Warhorse, I'll be doing Junk there, which actually was at La Jolla Playhouse before.
Right.
Big things.
All right.
Keeping it going.
Okay. Well, I know you're gonna leave here kicking and screaming, leaving this weather to go back to New York.
I know. The worst day here is still better than the best day.
No
back
kidding.
East, but, you know, weather-wise.
All right,
But it's
but
been a pleasure.
Theater Corner will be here when you come back.
I hope
I
so.
want to thank you very much for coming here and sitting and chatting with me.
Thank you, Michael.
And because I know you got to get on and get ready for tonight's show
Yes, indeed.
of Hamlet
Yes, indeed.
at the Old Globe here in San Diego, California.
That's right.
So thank you so much again, brother. I really appreciate you. I
Michael.
enjoyed the golf.
Yes. Pleasure was all mine. You hit some good drives out there today. So,
Not
you know,
even
we gotta
close.
get back
You
out.
make me look bad, but it was still quite an enjoyable experience.
Yes, it was.
So I thank you again, and we'll be watching you see what your career does here, the trajectory, and I know it's going to be fine.
Thank you, sir.
All
Thank you,
right.
sir.
And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of Theater Corner. We'll see you next time.